The movie begins in the early 1830s with a young girl named Ellen. Desperately lonely, she calls out for a supernatural being to ease her solitude. Her cries awaken a mysterious creature from the shadows, one that seems both powerful and unsettling. The creature listens to Ellen's plea but offers her a deal. In exchange for companionship, she must pledge herself to him for eternity. Without fully understanding the consequences, Ellen agrees, binding herself to him forever. From that moment, Ellen's life changes. She gains the companionship she longed for, but it comes with unexpected challenges. Years later, in the winter of 1838, Ellen is now married and living in the town of Wisburg, Germany, with her husband, Thomas Hutter. Life isn't easy for the couple, so when Thomas's employer, Herr Knock, offers him a job to sell an old, crumbling estate called Grunewald Manor to a mysterious man named Count Orlok, Thomas agrees. The job promises financial stability, something they desperately need. However, Ellen is deeply troubled. She begs Thomas not to go, revealing that she has been haunted by dreams where she marries Death himself. A dream that strangely brings her both fear and an unsettling sense of pleasure. Despite her pleas, Thomas decides to leave. Before his departure, Thomas makes sure Ellen is safe. He leaves her in the care of his wealthy friend Friedrich Harding, along with Friedrich's pregnant wife Anna and their 2 young daughters. Although surrounded by caring people, Ellen still feels uneasy. Her dreams and growing sense of dread make her fearful of what might happen during Thomas's journey and what Count Orlok might truly be. Thomas travels to the Carpathian Alps in Transylvania to complete his mission for Count Orlok. However, upon his arrival, the local villagers avoid him and grow visibly uneasy when they hear Orlok's name. Their behavior confuses Thomas, but he presses on. That night, Thomas witnesses a disturbing scene. A group of Roma villagers are exhuming a corpse they believe to be a vampire. As he watches, they drive a wooden stake into the body's chest. To his horror, the corpse begins to vomit blood. This gruesome act leaves Thomas shaken and even more uneasy about his journey. The next morning, things take an even stranger turn. When Thomas wakes up, he finds the entire village completely deserted. No people, no signs of life, and even his horse has vanished. Left with no other choice, he decides to continue his journey on foot through the rugged and eerie landscape. As he makes his way, an unmanned carriage mysteriously appears out of nowhere. Without a driver in sight, the carriage stops for Thomas, as if it had been waiting for him. Despite his growing unease, Thomas climbs aboard, and the carriage silently carries him toward the foreboding castle of Count Orlok. Thomas finally meets the eerie and intimidating Count Orlok in his castle. Orlok wastes no time, insisting they finalize the property sale immediately. During dinner, Thomas accidentally cuts himself, and before he can process what's happening, he blacks out. When he wakes up, he discovers strange bite marks on his chest, leaving him terrified and confused. Things take a darker turn when Orlok steals Thomas's locket, which holds a lock of Ellen's hair. To make matters worse, the Count forces Thomas to sign a document written in strange occult symbols, further deepening Thomas's unease. As days pass, Thomas becomes weaker and sicker, his strength fading. Exploring the castle, he discovers Orlok sleeping inside a coffin. Summoning his courage, Thomas attempts to drive a stake through Orlok's heart. But before he can, Orlok awakens and attacks him, feeding on him once again. Barely escaping with his life, Thomas flees the castle, evading Orlok's wolves. Exhausted and injured, he finds sanctuary at a nearby church, where Orthodox nuns nurse him back to health. Meanwhile, Orlok sets out for Wisburg, determined to reach Ellen. He boards a ship, bringing with him rats infected with the plague. As the journey continues, the rats spread disease, killing the ship's crew one by one, leaving the vessel a floating death trap bound for Thomas and Ellen's town. Back in Wisburg, Ellen begins experiencing strange and frightening episodes. She suffers from sleepwalking and violent seizures, leaving her husband's absence even more distressing. Her doctor, Wilhelm Sievers, does everything he can to help her, but nothing seems to work. Desperate for answers, Sievers decides to seek the help of his former mentor, Albin Eberhard von Franz, a scientist shunned by the academic community due to his interest in the occult. When Sievers explains Ellen's condition, von Franz becomes convinced that she is under the influence of a Nosferatu, a demonic vampire that brings death and disease wherever it goes. According to von Franz, this Nosferatu is no ordinary creature. It spreads its evil through plague and possesses a dangerous power over its victim. Meanwhile, Herr Knock, Thomas's employer, is locked away in an asylum. He has been caught killing sheep and eating their raw flesh, behavior so disturbing it shocks even the asylum staff. Sievers and von Franz suspect that Knock is somehow connected to the Nosferatu, acting as its servant. Determined to uncover the truth, they search Knock's office. Their investigation leads them to a chilling realization. The Nosferatu they are dealing with is none other than Count Orlok. Thomas finally makes it back to Wisburg, but the town is already falling apart as Count Orlok's plague spreads, taking lives rapidly. The once bustling town is now filled with fear and death. Meanwhile, Knock escapes from the asylum by killing a guard and begins carrying out his master's bidding. He guides Orlok to Grunewald Manor, setting the stage for the Count's final plans. Orlok confronts Ellen, appearing to her in the shadows. He admits that he is incapable of love, but reveals that her pledge to him has bound their fates together. This connection has made his desire for her uncontrollable. Ellen learns the full truth. The document Orlok tricked Thomas into signing has voided their marriage, leaving her vulnerable to the Count. Orlok delivers an ultimatum. She must surrender herself to him within 3 nights, or he will kill Thomas and allow the plague to consume Wisburg entirely. Struggling with guilt and fear, Ellen confesses her past with Orlok to Thomas. The two share a deeply emotional moment which leads to them having sex. However, this act enrages Orlok, who spies on them from the shadows. In a horrifying act of revenge, Orlok murders Anna and her 2 children. The devastation continues as Friedrich, overwhelmed by grief after discovering his wife and children dead, succumbs to the plague. He dies while lying beside Anna's lifeless body, marking another tragic loss in Orlok's growing reign of terror. Von Franz's occult research reveals that the Nosferatu, a demonic vampire, can only be destroyed by the willing sacrifice of a pure, innocent maiden. This information gives Ellen the hope she needs to end the plague that has been ravaging Wisburg. Realizing she may be the only one who can stop Orlok's reign of terror, Ellen decides to make the ultimate sacrifice. But she knows that if Thomas finds out, he will try to stop her. So she secretly conspires with von Franz to keep Thomas distracted, ensuring he cannot interfere with her plan. Meanwhile, Thomas, von Franz, and Dr. Sievers travel to Grunewald Manor, hoping to find answers and stop Orlok once and for all. They mistakenly find Herr Knock, who has been acting as Orlok's servant, asleep in Orlok's coffin. In a tragic turn of events, the 3 men accidentally kill Knock. Realizing too late that von Franz may have been hiding something, Thomas suddenly understands the depth of the danger Ellen is in. He rushes back to Wisburg, desperately trying to get to her before it's too late. At the same time, von Franz stays behind to destroy the coffin that holds Orlok's power. As Ellen prepares for her final act, she calls Orlok to her bedroom, knowing that she must repledge herself to him to carry out the sacrifice. She offers herself to him, allowing the vampire to feed on her blood, distracting him long enough to carry out her plan. As the hours pass, she knows she must hold out until sunrise, for it is only with the light of the sun that Orlok can be destroyed. The time grows tense as Ellen endures Orlok's feeding, feeling her life slowly slip away. But just as dawn begins to break, the sunlight starts to pour through the windows and touches Orlok, burning him. With his demise, the plague that has ravaged the town begins to fade, leaving the townspeople free from the curse. Thomas arrives just in time to be by Ellen's side as she dies. He takes her hand, devastated by the loss, but knowing that her sacrifice saved them all. Von Franz confirms that Ellen's willing death has broken the spell, ending the plague and freeing them from Orlok's control. Though Ellen's death is heartbreaking, it is the only way to truly rid the world of the Nosferatu and end the suffering brought by his evil presence. Ellen's selfless sacrifice brought an end to the plague and destroyed the Nosferatu, but at a devastating cost. Her love and bravery will never be forgotten, as her actions saved Wisburg from the darkness. If you enjoyed this recap, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more chilling tales and unforgettable moments. Thanks for watching.